Hello and welcome into Friday's edition of the Arizona State Sun Devils Insider Podcast. And we are just a day out, roughly 27 hours away from the Arizona State Sun Devils kicking off what could be the biggest game of their Big 12 existence outside of the Iowa State Big 12 title game last December, as they welcome the number 7 ranked Texas Tech Red Raiders to Tempe. And I am once again joined by my co-writer Tanner Capolini, my a great intern for me. Tanner, how's it going today, and how are you looking forward to? How much are you looking forward to this matchup tomorrow?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin, for having me on once again. It's just interesting with ASU because this was a very bumpy week, and this is kind of an interesting game where you have a lot of injuries with ASU. Really unfortunate that Ben Coleman's out for the year. Just a guy that I really liked. Sam Levitt's probable, but is he gonna play? We're still not 100% sure. And then Texas Tech, their quarterback, they might have a backup playing. So it's just so many different factors. So kind of just a different game, but still exciting. This is a rivalry that's been kind of brewing over the past years. So at least that'll be fun to watch here and see. The ASU crowd show up at home. That'll be fun to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Some like you brought up with Ben Coleman, some unfortunate injury news that kind of offsets the Sam Levitt news that he probably is going to play. Ben Coleman got ruled out for the season. Cyrus Fiaseu got ruled out for the season, and he had surgery. I believe Ben Coleman had surgery on Tuesday, according to Marcus Arroyo. Uh, Xavier Alford is out still for the foreseeable future. And Kyson Brown is out for the foreseeable future as well. Coach Kenny Dillingham said Kyson Brown is probably going to be out at least through the bye week, which means that the earliest return that he sees for him is probably November 15th against West Virginia, so just around a month from now. So that's another unfortunate blow for the Arizona State team. And that kind of leads me into the key matchup of this game. I feel like from most people's perspective is the Arizona State trenches versus the Texas Tech trenches, a lot like last week. Texas Tech's defensive line and linebacking core is exceptional. They have two players that have recorded at least 4 sacks this season so far. Uh, they the most points they've allowed all season is Kansas, which they allowed 17 to them last week. And Jalen Daniels did have a good game, Kansas' quarterback. He did have a good game through the air, but the run game was virtually a non-factor, and I feel like that's going to be very, very important for the Sun Devils. If they want to win this game, if they want to pull out a win, they need to run the ball very well in different scenarios, different down and distances. They need Kanye Udo to step up this week, much the way he did against Mississippi State. And who knows? You might even call upon Demarius Man Robinson. He was getting first team snaps earlier this week. Coach Dillingham said a lot of the reason why was because Udo was out due to being sick, being a little under the weather. But you might need to call upon the three deep running back situation once again, especially against a defense like Texas Tech's.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, Kevin, with what you said. I think, yeah, the line thing is just kind of, I think, the most worrisome because we talked about that a lot last week in the Utah game and how amazing Utah's offensive line was. And we saw that ASU really did not have an answer for Utah at all with their offensive line. They really just, Utah was able to run whatever they wanted to. And, ASU really didn't have any, pressure on the Utes at all. And I think that Texas Tech has a great line and that's going to be another issue. And can Brian Ward adapt? I mean, I hope so, but we'll see. I still really do like this D line, but and yeah, and ASU's offensive line is also it's just kind of concerning because yeah, Ben Coleman's one of the better ASU linemen. We kind of have been mentioning that in the podcast. Some of the other offensive linemen have been good, but kind of struggling here and there. And Coleman was kind of like the second best lineman. So the fact that he's out is a really, really huge blow. And we'll see if players can step up. We've seen the safety position, Adrian Boogie Wilson step up there, Martell Hughes step up for linebacker. So we have seen ASU players step up on this team with injuries. So hopefully that continues with the offensive line. Just is a bit more concerning, because of how good Coleman was. But we'll see. I think the big thing with this game is just can ASU kind of have the time of possession. I think running the ball is going to be a big factor. I think, Sam Levitt most likely playing is going to be a big storyline. But I think this team needs to run the ball, throw a short, throw a medium, really run the clock because ASU, or Texas Tech, my bad, really gets out to these big starts early. They've put up a lot of points. They put up at least 34 points in the past 4 games, and they get a majority of those early. So ASU, who kind of starts slow, cannot at Texas Tech because this game could be kind of over by halftime if they don't play their cards right.
That's a great point. They cannot afford another slow start this week like they did against Baylor, TCU. They just won't win a game in which they have a similar start. That's just not going to happen against this Texas Tech team. We talked about how well rounded they are. But on the flip side, like you said, how much they struggle with Utah, they might have a more favorable matchup, at least linearly, against Texas Tech. Coach Dillingham brought up a great point when I asked him about uh, the difference in preparing for a unique offense versus a more conventional offense, quote unquote. And he was talking about how you'd rather face more of the Utah style of offense coming off of a short week or without a bye in between. Because when there's a bye week like there was with Utah, they can throw in 2 weeks of game planning against you and completely throw you out of rhythm. And we saw that last Saturday against Utah. Meanwhile, Texas Tech, they do have a great offense in Mac left, which is a great offensive coordinator. Cameron Dickey has done a great job running the ball over the last few weeks. But they do still have more of a conventional approach when it comes to the offensive side of the ball, uh, at least compared to Utah, where they usually utilize the +1, the triple option, all these different wrinkles that you don't see all that often from other programs. Uh, the Texas Tech offense is very dynamic still. I believe they've had 8 players that have caught touchdowns this season. Cameron Dickey's coming off of almost a 300-yard performance against Kansas. Will Hammond is a quarterback that you need to prepare for in and of himself just due to his rushing ability. And there are a lot of things to unpack with this Texas Tech offense. The defense is the unit that usually gets the discussion built around them. But what do you like about Texas Tech's offense, Tanner? And how do you think ASU can possibly slow down a guy like a Cameron Dickey or Will Hammond?
Yeah, it's no surprise that Texas Tech's offense is this good. It feels like for the past, 10 years, even when Patrick Mahomes is playing there, this has always been a very quick, high powered offense. It's kind of just one of those things that's been in their DNA for the past kind of 10 or so years. So yeah, like I said, it's no surprise. I think what makes them good is they just have a lot of great playmakers. You mentioned that about how a lot of players have had touchdowns. They kind of looking at the receiving yard leaders. There's kind of about 4 guys who are about 5 players who are really kind of close together. So they're a team that just really can attack you in different ways. They have a lot of variety, and I think ASU matches up good overall. I think that in the Utah game, the secondary didn't really like they played well, but it was mainly rushing in that game. And I think the secondary overall has been pretty good this year. And I think you have Keith Abney, Javon Robinson. I'm very excited to see Adrian Boogie Wilson in this game. What I like is Texas Tech. They're a quick offense, but ASU has athleticism, that agility that I think can really um, play well against an offense like that can get the ball out quickly. I do like the way they match up there. That is something I do like. I'm interested to see how Brian Ward adapts. The more aggressive style is sometimes hard because Texas Tech is so quick. I would rather kind of have him drop back in coverage more than rather blitz, but who knows? We'll see. That could work out. But yeah, I do like overall the way this secondary matches up. I think this could be a big, maybe Javon Robinson game. He's had a good year, but could this be a big breakout game? Keith Abney could kind of do his thing. So yeah, I think the secondary overall, I like how they match up against a pretty good passing game.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tanner, about the athleticism that they have to offset a lot of what Texas Tech does. Uh, it's still going to be a challenge. The depth is still going to be tested. Uh, a guy like is although Martell Hughes has stepped up, having no Cyrus Fiaseu is a big deal. Boogie Wilson, same deal. It's still massive to not have that experience and seasoning that Xavier Alford brings to the table. And then you have a lot of guys on the front seven that are banged up as well. CJ Fight has remained probable for the last few weeks on the injury report, so he's obviously dealing with a little something. Uh, it just seems like this season, especially compared to last season, they just don't have that same injury fortune. And that's unfortunate, but like you said, they still have the talent to offset a lot of the stuff that Texas Tech does, like I said, as well. Uh, I think the biggest challenge is going to be preparing for the possibility that you have to play against Will Hammond compared to Baron Morton because they're just two completely different styles of quarterback. Morton's more of that stabilizer, the guy that has the ability to have a high end game, but he also is more of the high floor variety, typically where he doesn't lose you the game more than wins you the game, if that makes sense. Well, Will Hammond's a little more volatile as a passer right now. He had that great performance against Utah, but that hasn't come consistently yet for him. But just the dynamic ability that he has as a rusher adds another layer to that Texas Tech offense at the same time. So the challenge between balancing uh, preparing for personnel in general versus specific personnel is going to be big for Brian Ward's unit, I think. And we'll see how that turns out come Saturday morning. We might have more clarity as of Friday night in terms of Baron Morton, but we shall see.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I did want to ask you, Kevin, what did kind of Brian Ward say for his prep this week? Was he kind of sticking with his more aggressive plan, or was he kind of doing something different? What did he kind of say on that?
So that's a great question. I'm going to try and find what he said right now because I asked him about the challenges of preparing for uh, Baron Morton and Will Hammond, preparing for two quarterbacks. And if I remember right, he pretty much said that he doesn't look to prepare for. He said what he's looking for is preparing first for Mac Leftwich's offensive style, and you have to make that your top priority. Uh, and then you have to look at the philosophy with certain personnel on the field, and then it is about personnel. The next step, uh, how can you mold what you're doing system wise to what they're doing? It's all about strengths and weaknesses, trying to take away their strengths, make their weaknesses win the game for them. So he basically was talking about how it's more important to dissect the tendencies the offensive coordinator has pertaining to the personnel in general than the specific personnel. And Dillingham said something similar. He said if you prepare for two quarterbacks, if you go too deep down that rabbit hole, it's just going to confuse your guys more than anything. So I think the approach that they're taking is uh, attack their points of take away their points of strength and attack their points of weaknesses and make those weaknesses the things they have to accomplish to win the game, which is a pretty conventional approach. I don't think they're going to really change anything that they do. I think that they're more so uh, meticulously going at Texas Tech specifically, but still at the same time they just need to keep doing what they do well. That's really my take on that. I think.
Yeah, because it's interesting because the ASU defense, I think, has been pretty good overall. I think last week was a really bad showing for the team, but it was kind of a bad showing for the whole team in general, to be honest. But besides that, they've been really good. They've been able to be clutch. So I'm interested to see how this defensive unit plays. I also think as well. Playing at home's a factor. I think if this was at Texas Tech, that would be a lot more of a kind of scarier thing for ASU. But I think playing at home's good. I think running the ball, kind of having a good offense, I think can help with the defense. I just do want to ask Kevin overall because I mean that Utah game was just really tough with the loss. How do you think ASU's kind of like how are they viewing that game? Did they move on from it quickly? Are they really letting it affect them? Kind of like what's the vibe you're getting from that game, and how do you think they'll carry over into this one?
Yeah, I think they're definitely moving on. I think that you kind of have to have that mindset when you lose a game in that manner. You have to you have to have it in the back of your mind because you don't want to have a repeat performance of that level. That's just something that if you have two of those performances in a row, that's going to set the alarm. That's really going to start becoming a pattern in a lot of people's eyes, and you don't want to lose your season in that manner. You just don't want the season to slip away like that, especially after coming into the season with this much talent, this much continuity. You just don't want that. But at the same time, you have to move forward. You have to treat every game like it's an opportunity to go 1-0 instead of, oh, it's this is the game for our season right now. And I think that's what they're doing. I think that they very much respect Texas Tech. They know Texas Tech's a high level team, but I also think that they still have the confidence that if we have 10 lining up under center, if we have our defense playing to the level that we know that can play, like this is last week's game was their first truly bad performance, I'd say, overall in well over a year. So uh, when we have our full assortment of weapons performing, because we know Jordan Tyson had 8 catches last week, but he wasn't able to be his full self in terms of how effective he was. Uh, when we have all that stuff put together, we can compete with anybody in the country, not just Texas Tech. So I think that they are moving forward, but they also recognize that they don't want to have a lapse like they did last week. So I think it's a fine line and a balance, and I think they're doing a great job of bridging those two together.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I like the way Coach Dillingham handled the game. I saw a clip of like after the game, like he was still like kind of telling Utah good game, and he had a really really good quote where he's like, I have to do better as a head coach because there's no GMs in college football. Like he's like I'm the one that makes all the decisions. So yeah, I thought Coach Dillingham really did a good job, and hopefully that Utah game does serve as a wake up call. Um, I do, yeah. I think you mentioned number 10. If Sam Levitt does play, I still think that ASU could have a good game through the air. Texas Tech's defense is pretty good. They have a good secondary. They have David Bailey, who's a really good pass rusher. So I'm really interested to see how the line does blocking for Bailey. But yeah, I think if Levitt's back, I would like them to work a lot of the middle of the field. Kind of maybe get some of the guys involved. This could be a big maybe Mateo game, the tight end, if he can get going. So, yeah, I'm interested to see how this passing game looks against this Texas Tech defense.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that I think have the potential to come through outside of Jordan Tyson. Obviously, when Tyson and Levitt are on the field together, it's those two guys at the end of the day just making plays. But I feel like before the Utah game, there were a lot of players that were making maybe not a high volume of plays. I think we've discussed this previously, but they made timely plays like a Malik McClain who made that 15-yard catch against TCU on third down to move the chains. That set up the Jaron Hamilton catch that set up a field goal. Shimon Mateer has had some great moments over the last few weeks. We know the talent that he has, and he's one of the best in the Big 12, maybe in the country, when it comes to tight ends that are just that security blanket in the 5 to 10 yard game. Uh, he's just very good in the short game. That's just something that some value that he brings that they desperately need. I think even a Jalen Moss. Jalen Moss had a couple of nice catches against Utah. I think that he's going to factor in as well. Um, Even a Derek Eusebio 63-yard catch against Baylor, he took some carries against them. There's guys that can step up outside of Jordan Tyson, and I think that's going to be an interesting thing, especially with Levitt's status, Texas Tech's pass rush, like you brought up. He's probably going to need to get the ball out quick a lot. And Mateer and Jalen Moss are two guys that come to mind when it comes to that.
Yeah, I like the point you made about the timely place from the receiving group. That is the one thing overall that has, I think, been disappointing is the lack of volume outside Jordan Tyson. And Tyson is amazing. He's fantastic. And I think he could have a pretty good game against Texas Tech. But yeah, that's something that I was really excited going into the season and was okay, this receiving depth. And it's really had trouble translating. Now, part of that is due to injury. So yeah, I hope Jalen Moss gets going. That's one of my main hopes because he's had a quiet year due to just some being out of injury. So hopefully he can get going, and we can kind of start to see more volume for ASU. That's something that I think has been kind of tricky to figure out here. But I do think overall this offense is going to have a pretty good game. I think that Marcus Arroyo is someone that's going to be able to kind of feel the game, and I think that even though there are injuries up front, and especially the Kyson Brown, I do think they have the players kind of overall to hopefully manage it. The main thing is I'm interested to see kind of the more so the decisions, like do they go off on fourth down, do they not? I think that's where this game's going to be really made is okay, more so the decision making rather than the play calling, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. I think it's hard to say the balance between pulling back and going full force forward. It's like I think it's just really a matchup week by week thing. Like they have a lot at stake this week. I think that they the mentality of just the ability to go 1-0 this week is very good. But from the outside, it's just objective that they probably need to win this game to have keep their Big 12 title hopes alive. So just how aggressive do you get, like situationally? For example, if you're in the third quarter, if you're down three, if you're down a field goal, like 20-17, halfway through the third quarter, you have the ball at your own. I mean, at Tech's 32-yard line, you have the chance to kick a 49-yard field goal to tie the game, or you have a 4th and 1, and you can try and uh, call an HB dive or a QB sneak or something, and try and score the touchdown and take the lead. What do you decide to do in that at that time? Do you decide to play conservative and have the chance that your field goal gets blocked again, and your defense has to run on eggshells, or do you take that high probability that you pick up a first down on a 4th and short and you have the chance to take a lead? At worst, you kick another field goal and you take more time off the clock for the Texas Tech offense to drive the ball. So what do you do in those situations? I don't know. Kenny Dillingham has a much better grasp of how to handle those situations than I do. So we'll see what happens. But ultimately, I think it will be a close game, as you probably could tell from my little monologue there. I think that's a great segue into the predictions. I think I'm going to go with I'm leaning towards Texas Tech still finding a way to win this game. Uh, I'll say 31-24. I think it'll be much closer than that touchdown gap, though. I think it'll be a game that comes down to the final possession.
Yeah, I really like that point you made. That kind of example you gave going for on third down, kind of the thought process, because I think it's going to be kind of a chain reaction game where I mentioned ASU should run the ball, but if they do that, then Texas Tech's defense could kind of stop them in the backfield, and then you get into these long passing downs, and then when you do long passing, this is just going to be a really interesting game. I think where how Texas Tech reacts. I think that's kind of what I come down to in this game is I think that they're a team that can really, I think, dictate how a game goes. And I know you mentioned that a lot, Kevin, that they can be a really controlling team. So I'm interested to see how ASU responds for that, and it kind of makes this game kind of sometimes hard to preview and predict because it's like, well, it could go this way, but it could go that way. I do think overall their approach should be defense not as aggressive, and then offensively run the ball going over the middle of the field. But again, that is subject to change. I do think ASU wins this game. I do think it'll be close though. I just like ASU at home, and I do think the secondary I like a lot. That's kind of where I'm hanging my hopes on is this secondary that's been I think really good this year. So I do think ASU. I'm gonna go 29 to Texas Tech's 24. I think it'll be close no matter what. And even if ASU loses, I think it will be close. Like you said, a loss really does hurt their Big 12 chances, but I do think this will be competitive. Now, is there a chance Texas Tech wins like 45 to 27? Yeah, but I don't know. I like ASU. I think home field's a big deal, and I think last week is going to serve as kind of a wake up call. And I do have ASU winning this one.
Great points. I had a tough time picking Texas Tech just because of the factors that you listed, especially if Baron Morton's unable to go and they have to throw Will Hammond out there. Uh, Arizona State's defense with Brian Ward is not exactly the defense that you want an inexperienced quarterback to go against. Uh, that's potential for two or three mistakes that could lose them the game, in my opinion. So I had a very tough time going with Texas Tech, even as talented and well rounded and as good as they're playing all around. But ultimately, I feel like I'm gonna have to see Sam Levitt go out there and stand in the pocket and make some big time throws before I'm fully convinced that they have the firepower to hang with Texas Tech at the moment. I still, like I said, I think they can still hang with them. It's just, do they find a way to close the deal at home? And that's really my final thoughts. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up the show, Tanner?
Yeah, I do think that last week's Utah game could be. It's going to be interesting how it's viewed in hindsight because I think that game is either going to be viewed as the collapse for the ASU season or kind of the spark for the ASU season. I think if ASU really struggles the rest of the year, people are going to look back at that Utah game and be like, that was the game where things start to really go downhill and south. And that could be the case, or it could be looked as a spark of this team was winning close games, but they had this game that was viewed as this game like, okay, we have to fix stuff. And I don't know how it's going to go. It is interesting this week. It kind of was more so a gloomy week for ASU with Ben Coleman being out and all these other injuries, but I don't know. There's a bit more hope at the end of the week here with Levitt probably playing. If Jeff Sims does start here, I do think Texas Tech wins by a good margin, like 38 to 20 if Sims does play. But I think if Levitt starts, I think more so ASU wins, and I think that this is a game that's going to really be interesting to see how this culture and coaching staff respond. They built up a really good thing here in ASU, and it's going to be interesting and fun to see how they answer.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very, very good insight to close out today's episode. Uh, Thank you so much, everybody that tunes in and supports us every single day. We will both be at Tempe tomorrow morning to cover the 1 p.m. Arizona time tip off kickoff. I'm already thinking basketball. Uh, so stay tuned and please consume all of our content on Arizona State Sun Devils on SI for this massive battle. And once again, thank you so much, Tanner, for joining me again today. And hopefully, I'll see you tomorrow with the breakdown of what we see at the game. And hopefully, it's a Sun Devils victory for all fans. Thank you for tuning in.